Hey guys, what's going on? This is NGS, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Just Talk. I bet you're all wondering, why haven't I done too many episodes of this series? Because the last game that I played, I think went by the name of Destiny, kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. I just couldn't really find the will, the urge to finish games in my backlog. So sad. So sad, I know. But in all seriousness, you guys, I suffer from something I think a lot of people here do, gamer ADHD. I can't sit still and focus on finishing one game. I've got to jump from one to another, to another, to another. So that's what happened. But in the past couple of weeks, I actually buckled down and finished one game that actually has a bit of a journey. It's got a history with me because it's a game that took me 2 years to finish. 2 years. And that, of course, is Tomb Raider. More specifically, Tomb Raider 2013, the reboot from Crystal Dynamics. And why I say there's like this 2 year history of me in Tomb Raider, because in the very beginning, when Tomb Raider came out, a little afterwards, like a couple months, I'd say, I saw the game really cheap on PC. Green Man Gaming has some awesome deals, if you guys are not aware, and they had the game for under $20, like 3 months after it came out. So I said, hey, a brand new game, $20? Like, shit, man. So I bought the game, and I got, I think, about 45-50% through. And for whatever reason, I just stopped playing. I think a big JRPG probably came out over the summer. Well, yeah, I was playing a lot. I mean, Tales of Exilia came out. Fire Emblem Awakening I was getting into. Shin Megami Tensei 4. I mean, geez, the list goes on and on and on. So Tomb Raider definitely took a backseat. But last year, when I took a visit to Texas to my boy Dante86's place, he had the definitive edition for PlayStation 4. And, you know, we all crack our jokes about remasters and, you know, how the 8th generation is chock full of them. There are more remasters than there are new IPs. But Tomb Raider itself was just gorgeous, for lack of a better term. The game ran beautifully on PS4. And, you know, while I had the PC Master Race version, you know, if I saw it on PS4 really cheap, you know, I needed to build more games for my collection, I wouldn't be opposed. And not even a month later, it went on sale on PSN, and I snagged it up for $16. So for a grand total of, I'd say, $35, I own the game on 2 platforms, and it took me 2 years to finish. Yeah, how's that for a story? But anyway, let's get on to the game. We're not going to sit here and talk about the graphics, the graphical fidelity of Tomb Raider on the PS4 or whatever. This was a really interesting game, to say the least. And it was something that I was really anticipating, but I didn't expect it to end up so good. So first things first, I mentioned this is a reboot game. The Tomb Raider series for a while had kind of, well, in my opinion, you know, it kind of lost its way. Not to say that the past games they've made were bad in any way. It's just that they didn't have that that factor that set it apart from so many other games that were released in the time. I mean, you compare the appeal of what people were looking at with Tomb Raider Underworld came out, compare that to like Gears of War 2, to Halo, to, you know, just a lot of the popular games coming out. Tomb Raider just really couldn't compete. And I think that's what Crystal Dynamics knew. I think that's what Square Enix knew. So they decided to reboot the series. And this reboot starts at the very beginning. You get to see the origin of Lara Croft. And without getting into the story spoilers and details about that, it's basically Laura's journey into becoming the person we know her as today. This is a very, very, very deep and personal story for Laura. This is a game where it pushes her to her limits. You definitely see a lot of growth for the character. You see a lot of emotion attached to it, and it's they don't really pull any punches when it comes to things that are happening, because you know you put yourself in this situation. You're a person who you know, you spend your life doing this sort of thing. You know, you spend your life, you know, exploring, and when you're shipwrecked on this island, going through all of these situations and having to deal with all these circumstances, it can really do a lot to a person. And Laura gets beaten pretty badly in this game, physically, mentally, emotionally. It's all there in the game. It definitely shows how fragile of a character she is. It shows how human she is, and that was something I really did like in the game. It definitely got me attached to the character more, to so that she's not just this guns blazing, you know, guy who's just gonna go and get revenge for whatever reason. Don't get me wrong, Laura definitely has her badass moments in the game, but they're coupled with the fact that she literally has to adapt to the situation. There are times where, you know, she breaks down and says she cannot do this, she can't go on, as any person probably would in the situation. But then she realizes that if she doesn't, who else is going to go on? Who else is going to save her friends? And that was something that really struck home with me, because it goes against the stereotype that there are no strong female characters in gaming. You know, when people say that, you know, there is no representation for the female gender, and yet they sleep on Tomb Raider 2013, I just cannot understand that whatsoever. You know, the stuff that she's gone through in this game is like 10 times worse than, you know, the stuff that you see a lot of these, you know, bulky, hulky dudes going through. And it's just, it was just awesome from that perspective. So if you're going into this expecting to get really attached to the character, you really are, because you see her grow. And by the end of the game, you start to see little snippets of the person she was before they rebooted. So you see how she's growing, and she's getting stronger, and she's getting more mature. And it definitely, you know, gets you excited for what the future may hold for this character. And when we're talking about the scope of the game, it's an open world action adventure title. So the entire island of Yamatai is basically your playground. You can go exploring, you can go hunt animals, you can go find tombs, you can do a lot of things in the world. There are collectibles for you to obtain. So it definitely keeps you interested. It's not just a linear story-driven game with pretty visuals to give you the illusion that it's open world. It really is, and it definitely captures the feeling of what the island is. A lot of people were assuming that, oh, it's going to be an island inhabited by a bunch of people. You can go and kick it with the natives. No, this is a deserted island for a reason. So don't be shocked if there are only animals and deserted tombs there. And I want to focus on the tomb aspect, because that's something I think the game received a lot of criticism for. The fact that it didn't feel like a Tomb Raider game because there wasn't too much tomb raiding. You know, there is some validity to that. You know, it's not a game focused on treasure hunting as a whole. There is a clear-cut, concise story. But at the same time, what people got to realize is that this is a reboot. And I know you're going to think I'm going to use the reboot cards or they're going to do something different. No, I'm not. This is a reboot focusing on her origin story. So, of course, she's not going to be this grade A, you know, fortune hunter. You know, she has to learn, she has to adapt to all this stuff. And there are tombs for you to explore that give you a lot of backstory and a lot of history on the island of Yamatai. So, in that respect, when people saying it doesn't feel like a Tomb Raider game, I don't get that whatsoever, because this is establishing the character, this is establishing the situation, which is what they're going to hopefully expand upon in further installments. You know, they actually show that she is that she grows into being this world-renowned treasure hunter. And the gameplay itself is another thing that people were kind of questioning. You know, are there too many similarities to another open-world adventure game, Uncharted? You know, this has been going on for a while. Uncharted, Tomb Raider, which copied which, you know. At the end of the day, they're both open world, not even open world, they're both action adventure games. But one game, particularly Uncharted, focuses more on the blockbuster appeal. So it's not open world, it's just straight path, do what you gotta do, movie quality, cinematic story. That's what it is. Tomb Raider, on the other hand, is a open world action adventure game that focuses a lot on exploration and doing a lot of side quests and side tasks. So both of them can coexist. You know, it's not like Uncharted is superior than Tomb Raider for whatever reason. No, they're two different experiences. And as a person who's played both series before and after the Tomb Raider reboot, they can coexist fine because they're different experiences. Uncharted is that summer movie blockbuster experience that I'm going to want to play for a weekend, whereas Tomb Raider is something that I want to, you know, really get attached to the open world, side quests, tomb raiding, hunting, all that sort of stuff. So in that respect, I don't buy that whatsoever. They've got their differences. They've both taken from one another, you know, with the reboot, before the reboot. So it's perfectly fine. And yeah, so the gameplay it's very sharp. You know, the best mechanics by far are using the bow and arrow. That's what I played the majority of the game with. I mean, there was very rarely situations where I had to rely on gunplay, because once you master that bow and arrow, you just pull off a lot of sick stuff. And there's a lot of upgradability to it, so it's not just a simple bow and arrow. You get a bunch of, upgrades, such as you get basically like armor piercing rounds, you get flame arrows. With the other weapons you have, you can upgrade them as well. So it definitely promotes, exploring the world and salvaging, so you can make the best Laura you possibly can, the best well-equipped Laura. But as far as the gunplay goes, I know a lot of people, were complaining that it doesn't feel as refined as it could be. I understand that. It's definitely not as refined as most third-person shooters, but it gets the job done and it's not irritating whatsoever. So in that respect, I really can't fault them for that. It does what it needs to do, and it's a game that's not necessarily focusing so much on gunplay. But overall, some of the things that kind of did, I guess, irritate me as a whole is something that I think the first Uncharted game succumbed to. My grammar's horrible, excuse me, it's like 2 a.m. in the morning. Is that it suffers from the enemy wave effect. There's just so many enemies, wave after wave. You go into this one room, here come the enemies coming in from the left, coming in from above, and it's just like, really, dude? I think they definitely need to work on the pacing of that. I mean, I understand that this dude's got like an army of soldiers, who are ready to take down Lara Croft, but come on, man. It kind of broke the flow and experience when you're going to have to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. This isn't just repetitive. This is just downright irritating, man. And the melee combat was also something that I really wasn't too fond of. It was definitely something that could have used a lot of work. It's just, you just go up to them and then, that's it. And I'm like, oh, okay. I was looking for something more satisfying, but whatever. And yeah, that was basically, I guess you can say, my thoughts on Tomb Raider 2013. It's something that I definitely think did live up to a lot of people's expectations, financial or not, for Square Enix, obviously. And it's something that I want to see evolve into something more, because it has laid the groundwork for a fantastic sequel. And I just really do hope that they take the criticism for this game, from melee combat to the wave effect to, making sure it's more open-ended for tomb hunting. It's not just, something that focuses just on the story. More emphasis on her being a fortune hunter, her raiding tombs and all that stuff. I hope that they take that into account when they do the sequel, which is coming out later this year for Xbox One and Xbox 360, surprisingly. So yeah, if you guys haven't played the game, I definitely do recommend picking it up. It's dirt cheap on Steam, and if you have a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, pick up the definitive edition for the game. And yeah, from me to you for now, I'm NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace.